Time for the Sunshine State Showdown, covering every top sports story in the state of Florida, from South Beach to the state capital and everything in between. And now, without further ado, your hosts, Brandon Kravitz and Zac Blobner.
Oh, what a week it has been. This is the Sunshine State Showdown, covering all the biggest sports stories in the state of Florida. Brandon Kravitz, Zac Blobner. You can find us on air all across the Sunshine State, Orlando, Miami, beautiful Jacksonville.
Duval!
That was a great Duval to close out the week. I'm feeling it, man. Find us streaming on iHeart 5 to 6 p.m. each and every weekday, and you can find the video feed as well on Facebook of the variety of sports stations that we find ourselves on in this state. Zac, Phase 2 starts today, and you know what that means. Bowling alleys.
Oh, yeah, totally. That's the first thing I thought of was bowling alleys.
Why was this Phase 2? Okay, so Phase 1 was like, that was essential. That was the creme de la creme. Let's get some sports going back up. Let's get some essential industry back up and running. And then Phase 2, we're like, I know what we need. Bowling alleys. That might be the most Florida thing I have ever heard.
I mean,
who's going to the bowling alley?
A lot of people, man. There's leagues, a lot of people, that's their like recreational way to get away from the house and have some fun and stay involved and active in some capacity. And listen, there's been no sports. So if you're looking to be competitive and you don't golf, that's the next best thing probably for people.
Are you selling yourself on going to the alley this weekend?
Hell no.
Do you have your own ball?
I do not. I wasn't like, my best friend was in the bowling league. He was really good. He used to bowl like 270 in high school pretty easily. And
that's how you get all the chicks.
Oh my God. So like there was like a semester though where I actually like, I didn't join, but I would go with him and bowl. And I bowl like 120. Like I'm not a great bowler. I have fun with it. I know how to do the like spin, and I don't put my hands in like completely. I just hold it without the holes.
Oh, well then you are a pro. That's what the pros do.
I know, I'm not a pro.
You get the spin. Does it spin and curve back? Does it like a curveball?
It does. Yeah. So I have some like skills, but no, honestly though, for me, I'm not going bowling. I'm going axe throwing tonight though.
Oh, nice. That's awesome.
So it's like,
great
that's
photo
like an
op.
activity.
That's a great,
that's
a great photo op.
The whole reason you do it, exactly. We bought flannels. Like I've been growing my sideburns out. Like you're going full Paul Bunyan. Like that's why we do it.
That's good stuff. The bars and the that's a bar because you can drink there, right? You can drink at these. You can throw an axe while drinking.
Some of them. It's funny because like as we're picking out. By the way, there's multiple places to go now. Like it's not like there's one like monopoly to like axe throwing place. As we're looking through the different versions and like places to go and throw axes, some have bars built into their like establishment. Some are like, we will not let you throw if you've been drinking. So I'm like, well, these are two different sides of the spectrum. So like one place they'll get you inebriated as you throw. And other places like if you're even drinking anything, we won't let you in. So it makes me wonder, Brandon, and this is just like whenever you see like a label for something that's like, don't eat this. And you're like, well, this is the dumbest label I've ever seen. Somebody at some point ate that, and that's why it's on there. So somebody at some point was probably hammered at this axe throwing place, and it did not end well. And I'm assuming that's why they're like, yeah, we're not letting anybody who's been drinking in here.
So I can really see very clearly both sides of this argument with the drinking while axe throwing, because on one end, I trust somebody throwing an axe while drinking whiskey as much as I trust gas station sushi. But on the other end, I guarantee you that axe throwing was created by somebody who was actively drinking. So it'd almost be like anti-history to not drink while doing it. So
it's poetic, man. It's poetic. We live in a poetic world.
Time for the opening round.
Let's do it.
The Jacksonville Jaguars, credit to them, after being pause for Duval identification. After being weirdly silent early on in what this week has been, a week of protest, a week of standing up for unity and what's right in this country, they've been extremely active since. Shad Khan released that beautifully written op-ed at Jaguars.com. The Jacksonville Jaguars themselves, the players, held their own protests today against inequality and police brutality, marching from their stadium to the steps of the local sheriff's department. Chris Conley, wide receiver, says, "Today we say no more. Today we see a nation that can't await change in a city that will not sit still or be quiet. Among those in attendance, or at least part of the promotion or supportive video, was Brandon Linder, Gardner Minshew, DJ Chark, among others. So the black, the white players all getting together and supporting the cause. And this is the kind of stuff that we need to see at this time.
Absolutely. Terry Robisky, running back coach for the Jaguars, also spoke before they started their march from the stadium over there to the sheriff's office. Love that they did that at 904 to represent the area code of the area, also 904 being Jacksonville's. I thought all that was great. But to Terry Robinski, the running back coach, he said he's 65. He said the whole time he's been in the NFL, every team, every year, he has never felt support like he is right now. And he said, because we're all looking, I've had this conversation a lot today, more so than the last few days, especially us younger people. Like, we're looking for instant gratification. And unfortunately, the bigger the cause, the less likely you're going to get that. Yeah. But this is a man who is 65, who has been around the league, been around football his whole life, a black male. And he says he's never felt support from an organization the way he does today, and that he has the last few days in Jacksonville with the Jaguars. So I think that shows we're moving in the right direction, hopefully. And it was really cool to see, a bunch of the players, and Doug Marrone was out there. A lot of the support former players like Denard Robinson also out there. It's encouraging. And I don't know how much you want to go past that, Brandon, but it's simply put, it's encouraging.
Yeah, I mean, a large part of my show earlier today, we tackled this issue again, as we've said on this show many times, and we'll continue to say it as long as it is necessary. And we're not going to run away from the conversation, but it also doesn't mean that we don't understand what we are at the end of the day, which is your outlet to have some fun and to laugh and to think about sports and all of that. So
talk about axe throwing and stuff. Yeah, we're here for you like that.
Absolutely. But, I mean, you bring up the story of, I don't blame any 65-year-old black man or woman, for that matter, that has reached a point in their life where they just kind of like give up, where they are disenchanted with this ideal America where we all get along and hold hands and sing Kumbaya, because you've seen so many different iterations of the coming and going of mass racism and aggression in the streets from people that are supposed to protect you. And that, I think that's part of the reason. One, young people just have more energy, but also because the older Americans in this country, white or black or Hispanic, have seen not enough change. And you kind of get to the point where you go, I'm 65, 70 years old. What the hell am I going to do at this point that I haven't done already?
Right. No, and that's fair. And that's why it's tough, because you want instant gratification, and
it's just, you can't get it with something like this.
You can't. But on the flip side, it's like, you also don't want to wait 10 years and then be doing the same type of protest a decade from now, as people who are in their 60s have done, not once, not twice, but probably 3, 4, 5 times, right? Where they were probably protesting in their 20s, and then in their 30s, in their 40s, 50s, and now they're in their 60s, and they're like, again, like, this is 5 times through. Like, we don't feel like is it mattering? And, so that's why when you hear somebody like the Jags running back coach in, his 60s, that's been around football, to say, I've never had organizational support on things like this to the extent that I do right now here in Jacksonville from the Jaguars. There's a lot of teams that are probably making a lot of people that are older feel that way, feel supported. Now, there has to be a follow through, right? I mean, you can hit a great tee shot, but if you don't get up and onto the green and then into the cup, it doesn't matter. So it's good. I'm glad to see that we're here, and to use a sports analogy there, there are good things to talk about. We do have more sports at least set to come back, and we'll get more and more and more into sports. But, I'm going to point this out to you, Brandon, and it's not a conversation we've had on the morning show in Tampa Bay just yet. I would be shocked if we ever get to a point where in some capacity we don't let the social activism and things of that nature into our program weekly, if not daily, even after all this protesting and everything calms down a little bit. I think this is as ingrained now in the conversations as sports will be. And I know a lot of people are going to be upset to hear that, but it's important. And to stop talking about it makes it seem like it isn't important. And that's why I think moving forward, again, maybe not daily, but certainly weekly, there's going to be moments and stuff, where you have to talk about it.
Well, I mean, look, as long as it's an important conversation to have. I've probably said that sentence more than anything else over the last week. But
have you ever said it prior though? And is it something you're going to say in the future? And that's where it's important, because yes, right now it's easy to feel that way. And I'm not saying that you wouldn't. I'm just pointing out, like, we all need to have this kind of enlightening thought as far as moving forward. 3 months from now, when we're in the heat of all these sports, we have to, in some capacity, somehow remember where we are at right now and how we feel, and make sure that those things are moving forward. And maybe by then it will be past the tee shot. You'll hit your second and you're looking to get up on the green, or you're on the green and you're going for your first putt. We need to make sure that that next shot, that next action is just as, followed through and thought through and successful as the first two.
Well, I don't think that there's any avoiding it. If you're being true to this form of sports talk radio, if you're supposed to talk about what's happening with the biggest sports figures in the country, then you have to talk about what's happening socially, because those athletes, a lot of the biggest ones, are involved in the movement, or they're saying things that spark outrage, like with Drew Brees and his tone-deaf remarks. LeBron James has stood up left and right. I mean, if you're talking about LeBron James right now, how are you not mentioning what's happening societally? And then when we get back to sports, to your point, I think sometimes we use the sports world as sort of this crutch to say we're over it. That racism doesn't exist anymore. Just look into the locker rooms. Those guys are getting along. We're all good. It's not a true representation of society, because in society, you're not forced to be around that level of diversity. You have to make that decision on your own, and not enough of us do. And I throw myself into that mix too. I am not absolved of this. And so we look at sports and go, we're fine. Look at that. Yeah. Look how much we love Michael Jordan. How could this country be racist? It doesn't work like that.
Well, and to your point, Brandon, even in sports radio, like, even our audience, like, we're in that conversation. We're around sports. We've been around sports. So, like, it doesn't even necessarily apply to us in the same way that it would other people. Like, people that like to listen to, other formats of radio, like your top 40 and your country music. And I love both of those formats. I listen to a lot of country music, but, they're not sandwiching between a Jason Aldean and Kenny Chesney song some really heated debate and conversation and dialogue about the future of our country and racism in America. So depending on where you're at, and this is something that, like, I think it's hard for us to understand, because we're in it now. We're entrenched in it. We're talking about a daily show, hourly. It's all over the place for us and for our audience. But not everybody is a sports radio fan. So the people that aren't, like, are they talking about it, and to what extent? And in what rooms are they talking about it? Is it a diverse room? Are they having conversations with people of different races, and men and women both split? And those are the types of things I don't know. And I don't know how prevalent it is.
No, and I think it's a good point. A lot of people have to seek that out, and that's really uncomfortable to seek out if it's not coming to you naturally within your world. We're in a position where, in the shows that we do outside of this, where we more regularly take calls, we can get a call from anybody of any race, any background, and hear their opinion. I don't know that everybody's experiencing that.
And even those people aren't all thrilled that we're doing what we're doing right now, that we've been doing. So, like, if those people who are used to different diverse backgrounds having conversations in this dialogue, usually about sports, mind you, but nonetheless, if our audience and you listening at home are like, I'm not a huge fan of what's happening in these conversations, imagine people that don't listen regularly. Those are the ones that they're having even less of these conversations. So those are the spots where, and you can see it on social media. Just log on to your Facebook and scroll through your feed. You can see that there's a lot of people that are having the conversations, but with people that look and talk and act just like them, and they're not getting outside of that comfort zone. And to me, it's blatantly obvious. Yeah. And I hope that you challenge yourself and you challenge the people around you to have more uncomfortable conversations.
I'm glad that you said that. And we do need to wrap up this segment. And I was planning on hitting other things, but I think if you have momentum in a conversation as productive as the one that Zach and I try to have, we've tried to have all week, why quell that? Why silence that? But I think one of the things that you hit on that's so important, I see this all the time from people on Twitter specifically that say such and such disagrees with me. I just hit the unfollow button. Or those, I've seen athletes like Bradley Beal is just to name one that I can think of throughout there, that he's so proud that he's lost all these followers because people disagree with what he has to say. that is the wrong mentality to have. Okay, I've seen plenty of stuff that I don't like, and I have to tell myself, do not hit that unfollow button. Do not unsubscribe on Facebook because someone says something that you disagree with. Now, if somebody's spamming you, it's different. But even if they say, even if someone says something hateful, well, that sounds like a great reason to unfollow someone. Wouldn't you rather that individual's comments see the light of day so that you can see what those that we should be intolerant of are saying? Why silence that? That should be out in the light, okay, so that you can see it. Broadcast it. Look at what this person said rather than say, I'm ignoring that and I'm staying away from it. And that's the extreme side. If someone slightly disagrees with you and you unfollow them, you're just not going to get any better. And so, I mean, it was sort of all over the place, but like, I think it's unhealthy to constantly hit that unfollow button if somebody's doing something that you don't agree with. I would rather see what that is so that I know that what I disagree with is out there and being said. I think it helps you solidify what you believe.
There's certainly a lot of stock in what you're saying. I think it's different for everybody. For us, I have so many avenues to have conversations with people that I don't agree with on a daily basis. That for me,
you're hitting that unfollow button. You're exactly what I was talking about.
Well, no, I don't unfollow. I'm more of a fan of like the mute button. And I have 2 Facebook pages. I have my personal one that's mainly for family and people that I've met on a personal level, just so they can keep up with what's going on in my personal life and in my professional life. But I also have my professional page where I let it fly pretty much for the most part. On Twitter, I refuse to block people. I mute people sometimes. And I'm a big fan of giving people more than one opportunity. So like if it's something where we've had a conversation 5 out of the last 7 days and every single time you've tried to paint me as something or you've been aggressive in a way that isn't fair or that's, over the line. Yeah, at some point it's too much. And it's just like, I'm not. Look, you want to call into the show, you want to hit us up on the text line, feel free to. There's a million ways to get in touch with me, but I'm not dealing with you anymore on here. With that being said, though, again, we're in it every day. We work in the mud, right?
Yeah.
So, like, it's a little different for us. Like, for me, I'd like for my personal Facebook to be an escape from the mud since I am in it when I work all the time. But that's not normal. Most people don't have that type of work where they are having these conversations. If you work for, a bank or Publix, you're probably not talking about racism too much in America. So I agree to you in the extent of most people. For me personally, it's not applicable, but I get where you're coming from.
All right, we are going to pivot to something way more fun than this. Long Gone Summer, the trailer has dropped. Are you excited? Do you look back on the late 90s fondly in Major League Baseball? We'll discuss that next.
Welcome back to the Showdown with your hosts, Brendan Kravitz and Zac Blobner.
What? Did we just become best friends? Yep.
Time for some added insight. Let's head to the Sunshine State Hotline.
I know when that hotline blink.
Indeed we do. Michael Lubitz on air, 940 WINZ, Miami Sports, the glue that holds the Defo show together. Luby, I feel like we haven't talked in weeks. How you been?
I know. I have separation anxiety. You guys okay? Have you moved on? Is that what's going on? Have I been left in the dust?
No.
We just wanted to make sure you weren't stuck in traffic again with the bad connection. We just want to make sure we can solidify.
You're on right now. What do you mean you've been left in the dust? We're talking on the air at this moment.
Well, I'm doing well. It's been a very interesting week in the world and in the world of sports. How are you guys doing?
Well,
good,
same.
man.
How's the audience reaction been down at 940 WINZ for you guys and the way that you've handled this week? It's obviously been different for us, and we've all stepped out of our comfort zone a little bit in a way that I think is very positive, but I won't speak any more for you than I already have. How's it been as far as your interaction with your audience and the response that you guys have gotten as you've, I'm sure, touched on many social issues? Yeah,
I mean, we've hit it head on. We're in South Florida. It's a very multicultural area, and it's been we've at least tried to be positive, but we've been honest, and we've had a lot of different people between former athletes, reporters of both black and white background. I'm a guy I've come to know very well from an internet show I used to do, a guy named M. Quinn Williams. He's an attorney now, was a former FBI agent. He also, before that, was an executive with the Jaguars, played at BC, a cornerback. So he's very, very background. He's a guy that actually wrote a pamphlet about how to survive altercations. He wrote this a few years ago, actually, for both sides. Being a former law enforcement officer and now an attorney, he's a civilian. He wanted to save lives. And I feel like that's what we try to get out of this, is focusing on the topic at hand and trying to make this world a better place, country a better place, and trying to bring equality for all.
Certainly true. And we know Brian Flores, has come out with multiple statements. The Dolphins have backed him. Just from your point of view, Udonis Haslem was another guy I think we brought up earlier in the week on the Sunshine State Showdown. What athletes and what Miami personnel have you kind of seen out there and on the forefront of this, and just kind of shed some light on the people that are being vocal and the athletes?
Well, Dwayne Wade is always, as we remember back when LeBron, the Heat really were one of the first early adopters in the sports world since, of course you had Arthur Ashe and Kareem Abdul-Jabbar and Muhammad Ali back in the day, but of this era, you remember Jordan was the one, Barkley is the one that said, I'm not a role model. And Jordan is the one that said, legendarily said, Republicans buy shoes too. So when I grew up, athletes really didn't speak all that much. It was sort of an era where athletes realized we can make a lot of money. Let's make lots of money. On both sides, all races, they sort of were mums. This era, this group has realized, no, we're going to speak. We're going to make this world a better place. LeBron's done it on multiple areas. And down here in South Florida, they haven't been quiet. Udonis Haslem, a guy who is the heart and soul of Miami Heat for a long time, a guy that on the court really doesn't add much, yet still gets contracts because he is the captain of that ball club. And he's a guy that also has family members that are police officers. And he spoke very loudly this week. Dwayne Wade is very big on social media, spoke loudly this week. We've seen Chris Bosh, the guy who's still, I think, out of Miami, who spoke a lot. He's a very eloquent, bright guy, came from his parents are academics. So education was always big with him, and being educated was always big with him, and speaking was always big. So we've seen the Miami athletes really grab a hold of this, and I'm proud to see athletes overall. I mean, yesterday, Florida State, and you probably would ask me about this, but I'm jumping the gun. Florida State sort of had an issue, but they turned it around the other way. And I'm proud of how they handled it, how Coach Mike Norvell faced it, and then now his athletes have been empowered to speak. And you've seen almost every player on the Florida State football team come out and have a strong statement. And I think that's what it takes to get away from fighting over kneeling to actually trying to fix the issues with this country.
Yeah, and look, that's why we left you in the dust. I mean, you just jump the gun. You just talk about whatever. I love that about you, Luby. You kidding me? Michael Lubitz on air, 940 WINZ, Miami Sports. How disappointed were you or surprised were you that the national anthem controversy reared its ugly head again? It was almost like we didn't learn our lesson from 4 years ago and evolve in any way when Drew Brees made the statements that he did. And it's not so much him. I mean, and this is me speaking and my opinion of this, it's not so much like he was tone deaf and what he said wasn't wrong. It was just really the wrong time to say it and to not understand what his black teammates and those in the city of New Orleans are going through. But it's like it was the reaction of those that supported him that once again you're seeing that wave of like you're not getting the message. What was your reaction when you saw that this had become a sports talk radio topic once again?
Well, that was my reaction. It's funny, Deepo and I sort of, when this 3 years ago, it like lingered for a while, we got frustrated, and we're actually both very open-minded people. But it was like we weren't talking about Kaepernick. At first, Steve Weiss is the guy that actually, and we've had him on with NFL Network. He started down here years ago, and he's the one that brought out the whole Kaepernick thing because Kaepernick was just sitting on the bench, and he was trying to avoid the national anthem, but he wasn't making it a big deal. And Nate Boyer, who is a former military guy, he's a wounded warrior. He's become pretty big in that sphere. Talked
Green Beret.
Exactly, a Green Beret. And so of the highest echelon when it comes to military. And risked his life for us all, for our freedom. And he said, look, I'm not really a fan of you sitting on the bench. So Kaepernick said, look, I don't want to, cast aspersions against this country. I love this country. I'm just trying to use my platform for good. He said, what do you think I should do? And Nate Boyer said, well, in the world, kneeling is a sign of respect. You should kneel, I think. So he took a military member's opinion, took it instead of said, no. He was a grown man about it and said, you know what, that's a great idea. He started kneeling and was trying to do it to help America, save lives. It wasn't even just black lives. It was just saving lives and trying to point a focus on some of the issues we have in this country. We are a great country, but nothing's perfect, and this country is definitely not perfect. And the focus went from that to kneeling and the flag, and so Deepo and I sort of got frustrated where we weren't having the real conversation. But we were actually this week impressed that I guess it did do something because now we're talking about it, and it took a few years, and it took more deaths, which is tragic. But finally, it seems like people are willing to confront this, and the center of it isn't kneeling. And exactly, where a few years ago when people were having the debate, there was no debates. When Drew Brees spoke, some people defended him. But the loud majority, and I wanted them to be less negative, but the loud majority spoke against him and said, look, Drew, you're wrong here, man. That is not the focus of this, and that's not what we're trying to do here.
Yeah, it's certainly very thought-provoking, and I think the dialogue's good, although some of it is difficult, and a lot of it, most of it, isn't uncomfortable to have in places that you wouldn't normally have it with people that you potentially wouldn't have it with, but it is important. It is necessary. I'm glad we're doing this. I'm glad we're going through this. If I may pivot outside of some of the serious stuff I know that we're talking about here, the NBA has their proposal to get back to work. The Miami Heat will be involved. And I asked Brandon a question yesterday when it comes to the Heat, and that's simply if you think that these extra regular season games will end up hurting or helping Miami and what you expect from them when the NBA does return.
It's funny because when we talk about a lot of these teams that were on a roll, like the Lakers were rolling and the Bucs, and home court for them is huge. I mean, the Lakers were doing everything they can to get that home court advantage because the West, we know, is extremely difficult. You have a team like the Rockets with two top, at times 5 players, top 10 players in the league in there, and they're not even, like the Lakers would probably not see them before the conference finals. So you want home court advantage. So teams like, and the Bucs, it's all about home court advantage. I feel like, especially when it comes to the finals, they're the teams I think are going to be hurt by this because there was a long break, one right in the middle of the season, and the home court is almost 100% a moot point. You're at another court. You're not even at your court, and there's no fans, which is what gives the home court advantage its power. Those teams, I think, are hurt. A team like the Heat, it's different because they have a lot of young kids who it seemed like they were hitting a wall. Kendrick Nunn, who's a guy who was neck and neck for Rookie of the Year with John Morant, and then now Zion's there, so it probably would be one of those two. Kendrick Nunn was having a tremendous year, and then he sort of hit a wall before the break, to be honest with you. Tyler Hero, a guy that was having nagging injuries, and he was either hurt all the time or whenever he would come back was about to get hurt. Duncan Robinson, a guy who jumped on the scene for them this year, was hurt a lot. Jimmy Butler had nagging injuries. So the funny thing about the Heat was they sort of needed this, and no one wanted this break, and it's been sort of a mess for everyone on and off the court. But for the team, they had a lot of injury issues where they've been allowed to work through them, and almost all of the players are perfectly healthy. They've been working. We've seen them together a lot. getting within social distancing and quarantining restraints. And I think they're the kind of team that I don't want to say it benefits anyone, but if there's a silver lining to it, they've been allowed to get healthy. And it seems like they're the kind of team that could be interesting in these playoffs.
I am genuinely shocked to hear you say that, because the Heat were one of those teams that when I was looking, they'd be on my short list for teams most impacted by this because of how well they play at home. They have the third best home record in the NBA, and you're telling me that this is a positive for them? I just don't see it that way. Injuries aside, this was a team that was going to need to win those games in their arena. Otherwise, I don't know what advantage they have.
Well, if you saw them before the last 2 to 3 weeks, the home court advantage they were starting to struggle. Like their injuries were catching up with them. And that's the thing. It wasn't like it was an injury and a guy will come back. They were nagging injuries. And when we've seen with guys like Jimmy Butler, he's played even in the playoffs most of his career, and he played for teams where he had to be the leader and he was the dogged defender guy. The Bulls, ran him roughshod. That these are the kind of injuries that would show up later in the playoffs. Yes, home court advantage is huge for this team. We saw that throughout the season. They struggle mightily on the road. Most teams struggle on the road. The way they struggle on the road is another level. However, to me, you saw their injuries really starting to hit them hard before the break, and I feel like if they can get healthy, it's a level playing field now. It's not like they're on the road. It's neutral. It's not home road. It's neutral. I'll take a healthy Viz team with Iguodala and Jay Crowder. Because remember, Jay Crowder and Iguodala came over and never played with Hero, never played with Myers Leonard, and really didn't play with a healthy Duncan Robinson or a healthy Jimmy Butler, to be honest with you. So, yes, they weren't great on the road, but this isn't the road. This is neutral. It's a level playing field for everyone. And I'll take a healthy unit. They were one of the deeper teams in the league the way that they played this season. I'd rather see them healthy than banged up.
I think my favorite thing is every team of every sport trying to come back. And I've had this conversation across different sports with different people that cover them. Everybody's like, well, X team benefits the most because they're healthier. Every team's healthier. But it's a fair argument, though, because if you're healthier, you should be in a better position. Problem is and again, it's like pretty much every team is in a better position in that regard. But it does matter, though, Luby. I'm with you on it.
Oh, no, I mean, and Brandon brings up a good point. Like their record is staunchly different, home and road.
14-19 on the road. So, I mean, who knows?
He's been hammering that, Luby. He's been hammering that for 3 days.
Right. He is right about that. But
he is right.
and everyone's on the road in this situation. So
or gentlemen, or everybody's at home. Are we not looking at this the right way?
Oh my gosh!
Right?
Stop it! Stop.
Michael Lubitz on air. 940 WINZ Miami Sports. Enjoy your weekend. Unplug a little bit. I think we all need that.
Yeah. Take a deep breath, guys. Have a great weekend.
Sounds good.
You too, Luby. Thanks, bro.
Did you hear that? He just booked himself for Wednesday. That was good.
I'm gonna start doing that on shows, because we do some hits in other markets. Yeah. We help out, and especially with Tom Brady in town, I've been getting a lot more calls than I'm used to.
I'm for the record, I'm gonna just interrupt you for a second. I very rarely, I'll do a couple a season for the Magic, right? And talk about that. Otherwise, it's like if the Pro Bowl comes here or something like that. It's pretty sporadic, but I have never received more calls to be on radio stations than with this week because of what's happened with Orlando. But anyway, go on.
Yeah, no, and that's how we need to start finishing our out of conference, out of station interviews.
You want to practice
from now on? Yeah, let's do it. So we just broke at the end, and you're just like,
this is Zac Blobner on air, WDAE in Tampa. Thanks so much for coming on. We appreciate your time, Zach.
Yeah, sounds good, guys. Can't wait again to talk next Tuesday. See you then.
I think you need to, now that we've kind of gone through it, I think you need to
No.
I don't think it's aggressive enough. I think you need to timestamp it. I think you need to tell
again. One more time. One more time.
Oh, we appreciate you joining us, Zac Blobner, WDAE in Tampa. We'll catch up next time. All right.
It was a lot of fun, guys. Can't wait to do it again next week, 5:20 at this time, every Tuesday. Looking forward to it.
That right there. That's the one that did not miss the mark at all. By the way, we'll duck in a quick break and let you hang out with your beautiful dog. I don't know how your dog or why your dog is making an appearance on this show, but this is Zac Blobner.
Brandon's kicking you out.
Coast to coast next.
Rain or shine, these guys have you covered. Now back to the Sunshine State Showdown with Brandon Kravitz and Zac Blobner.
You know, I'm glad that guy mentioned that because it has been raining a lot in our neck of the woods, my neck of the woods in Orlando, Zach's in Tampa. And so hopefully this weekend, I haven't looked at the forecast. Sometimes I just like to be surprised. Hopefully it's crystal clear wherever you may be. That was like the least Al Roker weather report in the history of weather reports, right, Zach?
Yeah, man. Yeah, dude. What just happened? Are you talking about the voice guy?
Yeah, the voice guy. He said rain or shine. We got you covered.
I thought you had like a weather report in front of you, and I was like, are you going to clue me in? Yeah. No. Weather. Yeah. Rain. A lot of rain this weekend. Get ready. Yep.
I don't know. I haven't looked. I don't. What? I want to be surprised.
So is that how you normally head into your weekend? Because I'm a big check for the weekend weather type of guy.
If during quarantine, which I mean I'm not really as much a part of, but like it's not like I've got these huge plans over the weekend. So no, if I'm not doing anything, I don't look. What's the difference,
man?
If I'm not doing anything, what's the difference? It's all it's all gonna happen spontaneously. Whatever I do,
the weather usually does.
I have a child. Okay, there's only so many things that you can do.
Touche. See, this is where we kind of lose each other because I hear you, but I don't fully understand. So. I have 3 dogs that are the same whether it rains. Oh, actually, they bark more when it rains.
Well, yes. Like if you have dog-related activities, you need to know what the weather is. You know, if I'm watching Mickey Mouse Clubhouse in my living room, it doesn't really matter if it's raining or it's sunny.
What if you lose signal? Then you're going to have to become the Mickey Mouse Clubhouse.
Signal.
Think about that.
Give me a break. That's so old school. I'm streaming, man. Come on. Anyway, let's get to the big bite.
Blobner's Big Bite.
You're going to need a bigger boat.
Yes, bigger boat, bigger bite, bigger Blobner. Let's rock. I want to talk about sports today, guys. If that's okay with you. I know we're doing a lot of non-sports stuff, and it's important to do so. However, the documentary, the 30 for 30 on Mark McGwire and Sammy Sosa, Long Gone Summer. The trailer is out. We're set to be able to watch it in its entirety starting June 14th at 8 o'clock Central Time. Don't know why I have it written down in Central Time. Somebody do the math on that for me. I hate time zones, but that's for a different big bite on a different day. Long Gone Summer. And here's the thing that comes to my mind. So when The Last Dance was happening and ESPN was like, we're going to take advantage of this. We're going to kick out a bunch more 30 for 30s. They put out a long list of things that they plan to do, including Tom Brady's in 2021. The one that caught my eye the most was this one, because I'm curious to see how much they talk about the steroid use. Sammy Sosa obviously caught using corked bats. There's a lot of things that come into play with that summer of the beautiful home runs, the fun NL home race that they had, the Cardinals and the Cubs with their 2 superstar sluggers. But I'm pumped for it. And I know we're going to make a lot of jokes during it and leading up to it about these guys using, but we're going to enjoy it. We're going to feel the same things we felt when we watched it that summer. And it takes me into a bigger conversation, Brandon, one that I've had many times, and I have every year when the MLB Hall of Fame ballots come out. Everybody wants to get on their pedestal and talk about how if you use roids, you're not allowed in. Look, I'm not about anybody hurting their body, right? But if you're doing something that's not illegal and it's supplemental and it helps you become a better athlete, and I'm not saying that people should use steroids, but that was some of the best baseball we ever saw. And we put all these limitations on what guys can use and supplements. And you can go to GNC as me or you and buy some of these things. And again, I know anabolic steroids and the needle usage was at an extreme situation. I get all that. But the stipulations put on what guys can and can't do is just wild to me in a lot of these sports, including baseball, whose product has not been as good since steroids were out. And I don't know how you can argue with that. But that's where I'm at on it. I'm going to enjoy the 30 for 30. I hope you do too. And regardless of how they were able to hit those home runs, guess what? You cheered and I cheered and we all enjoyed it the same when it was happening.
Oh, right there. You see, he hit the post. That's a professional radio guy right there. Okay, it was pretty good.
I was juiced, man.
Yeah, that's good. That was good. Very good. A couple thoughts on what you just said. I have reconciled myself to believe that while the records that they broke, or Mark McGwire broke, while that was tarnished by the drug use, my memories of that summer are not, because I didn't care at that time. I was 13 years old when I watched it. I had a blast, and nothing can take away from that. I don't feel like my childhood was robbed because at the moment I was enjoying it, and that's what matters. In terms of the Hall of Fame or records that have now been broken by Barry Bonds, who we assume was also using the same stuff, I disagree with you. And if it were legal and they said, go ahead, you guys can use whatever you want, and that's how they got to those numbers, and that's how they were better than
legal,
their competition.
Like in America or legal in the MLB? Like
in MLB, if they were just like, it doesn't matter. Okay,
there's a difference because a lot, like, look, I'm not saying there are certainly illegal supplements and illegal steroids specifically, but there's also a lot of legal like supplements and
not what they were doing. If they were using anabolic steroids, you still can't do that today.
But there was a lot of PEDs, and not all PEDs are illegal. A lot of performance-enhancing drugs
understand what I'm saying. I'm not anti-PED. Like, if we can find a healthy way to insert that into our bodies, especially athletes, go for it. I don't care.
There is, though. There's a lot of healthy ways
but it's not about that. It's about a level playing field. And if you feel like you have to do this, which is outside of the rules in order to get ahead, then you are creating an unlevel playing field, and that should not be rewarded.
Widespread. And look, I get that not everybody was doing it, but I would argue most people were.
That doesn't make it okay. That doesn't make it okay. I mean,
should Lance argument is level playing field?
Should Lance
everybody's doing it?
Then should Lance Armstrong still have all those Tour de France wins because other guys might have been using it?
That's different. It's not because other guys might have been using it.
What if we found out? Okay, what if you found out?
What
if you found out Usain Bolt had been taking whatever drugs help him be better at sprinting? Would you feel the same about him and the records he set?
If that's the difference in the edge that he had over the other competitors, it's one thing. But your argument was just level playing field. And if we know that most of MLB was using back then, I would argue that it was still somewhat a level playing field because most of your best hitters were using.
We don't know that, though. We know that there were. There were a large number. We don't know that everybody was using. We don't know that. Was Ken Griffey? Do you think Ken Griffey? Ken Griffey Jr., Cal Ripken, Derek Jeter. Do you think these guys were using? My guess is no. They were some of the best players in the league. They had to overcome that the guys they were competing against were on these horse steroids. How's that fair? You know, so I mean, my memories are preserved and beautiful, but those guys should not be in the Hall of Fame.
All I know is it was the most exciting baseball we've had in 22 years, and baseball's not even been close to the same excitement since. And I love baseball; I still enjoy it, but you can't argue that like they're making a 30 for 30 on it. What baseball like achievement in the last 10 years would they make a 30 for 30 on, or 20 years? Like they're
Cal Ripken's streak, my friend.
But that is something that goes beyond it, though. Like what that has started and ended in the last 20 years, especially if you talk single season.
Well, it'd have to be Barry Bonds, but there's controversy laced all through that, too.
There you go.
All right. Hey.
So the most exciting baseball we had in the last 22 years is also the baseball that everybody is like, it wasn't fair. It wasn't okay. It was exciting. And look, as a fan, you're arguing from the player's standpoint, right? Like if you're a Derek Jeter or you're Ken Griffey or you're one of these guys that did it the right way and had to go, that's fine. I'm arguing at it from a fan standpoint. And from the audience viewership, it didn't affect how I watched in any capacity. It didn't. And it didn't affect you or anybody else either that watched.
I would love
the entertainment was real.
I would love to keep sparring with you, but we've got Michael Lubitz standing by right around the corner.
coast to coast and throws it down.
Well, how off our schedule are we? Welcome back to the Sunshine State Showdown. Brandon Kravitz, Zac Blobner. This is Coast to Coast, although right now I think we're only going to take care of one coast. Which one do you have, Zach?
Z-Blob in Tampa Bay, baby. Let's talk Buccaneer football. Bruce Arians talked to the media yesterday. One of the things he talked about was Devonta Freeman, and he said, we'd love to have him on board. We just are too broke to bring him on. Well, Devonta Freeman took to Twitter to say, hey, Bucs, give me a call. Let's talk. We even had that conversation. Let's talk directly instead of hearing it all through media. And I've heard from different people that cover the Bucs, Rick Stroud, Greg Ahmed, to name a couple. Let's say this isn't serious. The Bucs aren't going to bring Freeman on. That's why they drafted Keyshawn Vaughn. That interest might have been serious before the draft, but not after. The question is, though, and I believe them, and that sounds real, but why is Bruce even talking about it then? And I know he was asked about it, but you can't tell me there isn't something there.
Yeah, and Devonta Freeman, it sounds like he's interested. So why would you stick your nose up at that? I mean, in the NFL, you can find creative ways to create cap space. And it just seems like he would be such a welcome, positive addition to this team. Absolutely.
Wouldn't hurt. I mean, worst case scenario, he does actually get hurt and doesn't contribute anything, but they're right back to where they started anyway.
Exactly.
And they lose like maybe $1 million or $2 million out of their cap.
You already have backs on the roster, and you might as well just try and upgrade at a position you could use it. Zac Blobner.
Have a good weekend, B.
Thank you. I appreciate that. He's Zac Blobner. I'm Brandon Kravitz. You can hit him up at Zach on the mic. I'm at Brandon Kravitz. Download the podcast if you missed any of this show or any of our shows this week. Sunshine State Showdown on iHeartRadio. Have a good, safe weekend. And as we're in phase 2. We're back on Monday at 5 p.m.